So in my experience, it doesn't matter what the problem is or what ideas you're trying to solve. It's usually the framework in which you approach the question. And for me, I call it the 4 L's. You've probably heard me talk about this if you've read any of my content or anything like that. But there are 4 ways, in my opinion, to solve any problem. And the first one is to listen. Now, that can be to the customer, that can be to your spouse, that can be to your kid, to anything. But I would say listen to the customer, since this is the channel, listen to your customer. Then I would say look at the data. And that data doesn't have to be spreadsheets of loads of ideas and loads of pirate metrics tracked for years. It can just be like, what data is available to us? Is the roof leaking? Well, is there water? That kind of thing. It doesn't have to be completely and utterly SaaS or internet business related. It can be just what is the information available to me. Data is just another word for information. So you want to listen to the customer or listen to whoever you're talking to or the problem you're trying to solve it for. You want to look at the data or whatever information is available to you. You want to learn from the market. So everything boils down to demand, and then are you supplying that demand? And the market, Warren Buffett will call it Mr. Market. You want to see if there's demand. You want to see if people want what you are selling. You also want to understand that micro and macro ideas that are at play. So in business, there are lots of things that somewhat come down to timing. Like you're not going to release a new newspaper brand, but how would we make that happen? Yeah, if you positioned a newspaper in the digital age and you did it small and you were a creator, and then you had a newspaper here, this is where we're going with it. If you had a newspaper and say you every quarter you took all of the content that you posted online, you turned it into a nice editorial spread, and you sold it within your community to 1,000 people only, 1,000 true fans, and it was $20. That would be a way you could do that. So that would be like a little economy that was inside your own market because you had demand, because people wanted whatever you had. So you'd have to check that. You could look at the data, what your downloads, and you can listen to the customer and be like, what were my favorite posts? And that would be how. Okay, back to the video. This is going to happen a lot when I do that, I'm afraid. So that would be a fun little way to little idea to do that if you love the market. But the next one on the 4 L's is to live the experience. Sometimes you have to trust your gut. Sometimes you have to trust what you've done. There's a almost time traveling quality to experience where you can almost shrink time. If you remember, when you first graduated or first started doing whatever you were doing, how long it took you to do one thing. Like I think about me at uni to do one project. It took me like 3 weeks to produce something I could honestly produce in about 3 to 6 hours. So I've just got more efficient working. So I can now do 8 blocks of the same amount of output that took me that long. But the only way to do that is to almost skinny down, and that is time, right? There's no way you can't buy experience. You can't buy lived knowledge. That's the beauty of it. There was a funny story. Here we go. So when I was at art school, there was a teacher, I think his name was Roy Ridsdale, went to the RCA, really amazing drawer, life kind of fine art, life model and stuff. And he would teach us when we were in drawing on the easels and stuff. And he spoke about a guy that taught him to paint. So this guy was in his late 60s when he was doing it. And he would say that when he was taught, so when he was at the RCA art school, so that would have been probably late 60s. So, and he was an old guy then. So maybe we're talking like a guy who'd been drawing since the 20s, whatever his name was. Apparently, when he would show the class, he would start on the left-hand side, go down, draw the thing, and then he would change hands and draw the other half of the body with his other hand, and that would be almost his play. And then he'd say that the only way to draw like that is with experience and time, and that was his introduction to the class. And then Roy Ridsdale would tell us that story. And I remember seeing that and hearing it. And also we're talking like, oh my goodness, brilliant drawers. Just, they can think like, they understand form, they understand it, and they do it almost continuous line with really good technique. That's why I never do scratchy stuff. It's because art school is all about having purpose with your line. Anyway, like that is a lived experience. And someone who's just starting out and drawing, they might listen to the customer and be like, oh, I want to draw a painting. They might look at the data and realize that paintings are really hot on Etsy right now. They might learn from the market and realize that it's life drawing is cool. But then how they would go about doing that, or the way in which the final product would come out, the lived experience is what maybe would add in the magic. So I would never discount that. Sometimes you have to look at this stuff and you can be wrong. Sometimes if you're in logic mode, or if you're in optimization mode, you can take a piece that's a 4 and judge it up to a 7, maybe even a 9. But it's this kind of stuff, seeing that if you'd recorded that video and then on one side gone down, the other side gone round and drawn it, and then changed hands, all of this stuff would be great. But if you put that video on and then he'd sold a course about drawing, he would have absolutely cleaned up, because he would have used that as his wisdom and the way to execute it in the market. But so that's why I think listen to the customers, look at the data, learn from the market, and live the experience are 4 ways to essentially solve any problem. I haven't really found a problem that you can't solve it with yet. Not that I'm trying to solve really, really complicated problems here. I just like thinking, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? That's what I do. My job is to ask questions and play around with that kind of stuff. But give it a go. Hope it works.